In 1950, the most powerful government on earth declared war on me. Not on a country, not on an army, on me. Posters, radio broadcasts, school lessons, leaflets dropped from airplanes, the same propaganda machine that built the nuclear program, the Gulag system, and the Iron Curtain. All of it pointed at a creature that weighs less than a paperclip and has a brain the size of a grain of sand. They gave me a nickname: the American Saboteur, a biological weapon, a six-legged ambassador of imperialism. They told school children to collect me in jars and hand me in to the authorities. In some regions, there were quotas. If you didn't meet your beetle quota, you had a very uncomfortable conversation with local officials. I want you to sit with that for a second. One of the two global superpowers, the full weight of state media, an entire civic mobilization campaign, all of it directed at me. Now, here's the part I need you to hear. I won. I'm still here. They are not. My name is Leptinotarsa decemlineata. Most people call me the Colorado potato beetle, and this is my story. For 1,000,000 years, not 1,000, not 10,000, 1,000,000, my family lived quietly in the Sierra Madre mountains, on the border of what is now Mexico and the United States. We ate a wild shrub called buffalo burr. Stringy, bitter, barely worth the effort. Nobody knew we existed. Nobody cared. We were completely unremarkable insects in a region full of completely unremarkable insects. We had a good, quiet life. Then came the Great American Migration, the 1850s. Settlers pushing west, carrying livestock, tools, ambitions, and potatoes. Now, I need you to understand what that moment was like from my perspective. Buffalo burr, my ancestral food, is basically cardboard with thorns. And suddenly, somewhere in what is now Nebraska, one of my ancestors tasted a cultivated potato leaf for the first time. It was extraordinary. There is no other word. Like living on crackers your entire life, and suddenly someone puts a plate of pasta in front of you. We ate it. Of course, we ate it. That single decision, made by some anonymous great-great-grandmother of mine on a frontier farm, would eventually get me accused of being deployed by the CIA. But I'll get to that. The point is, I didn't choose potatoes. Humans brought the potatoes to me. I chose food. This distinction has never once been acknowledged by anyone who grows potatoes. But I am acknowledging it now, because it matters. Once my family discovered cultivated potatoes, we moved east. Fast, about 87 miles per year, according to entomologists who tracked us like fugitives, which by this point, we basically were. By 1874, we'd reached the Atlantic coast. The humans named us after Colorado, one of the first states where they documented us in large enough numbers to panic. Not our actual homeland, just where someone first screamed loud enough to write it down. From the Atlantic, we caught cargo ships. We arrived in France, Bordeaux 1922, then Germany, then further east. Governments panicked immediately. Quarantine measures, import bans, emergency protocols. We had no passport. We had no opinion on these policies. Then World War II happened. And I'll be honest with you, the war was extremely good for us. Quarantine services collapsed. Pesticide production was redirected to the front. Crops were already failing. Nobody had time to pick beetles off plants when bombs were falling. By 1945, we were at the edge of the Soviet zone of influence. And that's when things got genuinely strange. May 23, 1950. A farmer named Max Troger, in the East German village of Schönfels bei Zwickau, watched two American planes fly overhead. The next morning, according to the East German government's own official leaflets, his fields were covered in Colorado potato beetles. Within days, the government had its explanation. The Americans had dropped us from planes on purpose. as a biological weapon against the socialist potato harvest. I want to be honest about my feelings when I learned about this. On one hand, deeply flattering. I'm a centimeter-long insect whose primary defense mechanism is pretending to be dead, and someone decided I was worth deploying as a weapon of imperialism. On the other hand, I arrived on my own. I didn't need anyone's help. I was already coming. Entomologists had documented my westward spread across Europe for decades. I was on schedule. I was always on schedule. But the propaganda machine had committed. They called us Amikafer, Yankee beetles. Officials compared us to the atomic bomb, saying that while we were smaller in size, we were nonetheless a weapon of U.S. imperialists. Bertolt Brecht, yes, the playwright, one of the most important literary figures of the 20th century, wrote a poem about me. Posters showed fat American capitalists pouring beetles from airplanes onto innocent farmland. Children across East Germany, Poland, and Czechoslovakia were sent out after school with glass jars to collect us and hand us to the state. The Americans issued a diplomatic protest. Their note pointed out, correctly, that the beetle had been common in Germany before the war, that the East German government had launched its own beetle control campaign back in March of 1950, 2 months before the alleged American airdrop, and that the Soviet Union itself had published a pamphlet warning its citizens about the beetle exactly 6 days before the supposed attack. 6 days before. They published a warning about me 6 days before they claimed I was deployed as a weapon. Which means either they had extraordinary intelligence about American military operations, or they already knew I was coming because I was simply coming on my own. Nobody in the Eastern Bloc was shown the American protest. The propaganda ran for years. Here's the part I didn't expect, though. It worked. Not the propaganda, the collection. Millions of people who had never thought twice about a potato beetle in their lives started noticing us, picking us up, destroying us. Manual collection is the most ecologically harmless pest control method that exists. No chemicals, no dead bees, no soil contamination, just humans in jars. The Soviet and East German agricultural scientists, working under cover of fighting American sabotage, developed some genuinely useful control methods that are still in use today. Cold War propaganda accidentally created sustainable pest management. I've had a long time to think about this. It still irritates me. Now, let me tell you why you cannot get rid of me. I eat nightshades, potatoes, tomatoes, eggplant, peppers. This isn't random. My family has specialized in this food group for 1,000,000 years. And here's the thing about nightshades. They produce a toxin called solanine, specifically to stop insects like me from eating them. For most insects, solanine is poison. For me, it's seasoning. I don't just tolerate solanine. I accumulate it. It moves from the leaves I eat, into my tissues, into my eggs, into my larvae. I become toxic. Most birds in Europe and Russia find me bitter, unpleasant, actively nauseating. Back in Mexico, my ancestral home, the local predators had 1,000,000 years to adapt to solanine. They could eat my relatives. Here in Europe and Asia, no predator had that time. I arrived, and nothing wanted to eat me. No natural enemies. Abundant food. And I had turned my own food supply into personal armor. I ate poison until I became the poison. Then there's the sleeping. Every winter, I go underground, up to 1/2 meter deep. My metabolism drops to almost nothing. I wait. And here's what farmers discovered when they tried leaving fields fallow for a season to starve me out. I can wait for 2 or 3 years. There are documented cases. I enter a state called diapause, a kind of suspended animation, and I simply don't emerge until conditions are right. 1 year without potatoes. I'll be here when you come back. 2 years? Still here. I've outlasted empires. A fallow field is nothing. When spring comes and soil temperatures rise above 10 degrees Celsius, I emerge. I eat. I mate. One female lays between 300 and 500 eggs per season, in clusters of 20 to 40 on the undersides of leaves. Bright orange. Almost beautiful if you don't know what you're looking at. With 2 or 3 generations per year depending on the climate. The math becomes alarming very quickly. And then there are the pesticides. Humans have thrown more than 50 different classes of insecticides at me. Everything from organophosphates that were originally developed from World War II nerve agent research, to modern neonicotinoids, to biological sprays. I have developed documented resistance to more than 50 of them. Not immunity. Resistance, which is actually more impressive. Immunity is passive. You're born with it. Resistance is something I built, generation by generation, under chemical pressure through real-time evolution. Scientists now study me specifically to understand how evolution works under extreme selective pressure. I am a model organism for one of the most important questions in modern biology. In some cases, I developed resistance within the first year of a new pesticide's commercial deployment. There is one more thing I should tell you about myself. When a predator or a farmer grabs me suddenly, I do something I find mildly embarrassing. I play dead. I tuck my legs in. I fall. I lie completely motionless. Birds hunt moving prey. A still thing on the ground doesn't hold their interest. The bird leaves. I get up. I walk back to the plant. I resume eating. It's not dignified, but in 150 million years of beetle evolution, dignity has never once saved anyone. I now occupy approximately 16 million square kilometers of the Earth's surface. North America, Europe, Asia. My range continues expanding eastward. Entomologists are watching my progress toward China and India, which together produce more potatoes than anywhere else on the planet. I have survived the pesticide industry's entire 150-year arsenal. I survived the Soviet Union's propaganda apparatus. I survived the collective agricultural policy of every Warsaw Pact nation. I have survived approximately 10,000 scientific papers written about how to stop me. The superpower that accused me of being a biological weapon no longer exists. I'm not saying there's a connection. I'm just saying I'm still here. The smarter scientists figured something out decades ago. The goal isn't to destroy me. The goal is to manage me. Keep my population below the threshold where damage becomes catastrophic. Except that I'm part of the agricultural ecosystem now, the way rats are part of cities, and work with that reality rather than against it. But every generation, someone arrives with a new chemical, a new GMO strategy, a new biological control program, absolutely certain that this time it's finally over, and every time, some version of my family is still there the following spring, eating potatoes. The East German schoolchildren, with their glass jars, understood something that the pesticide industry still hasn't fully internalized. The answer is not one overwhelming weapon deployed once. The answer is constant, patient, low-impact pressure. Many small actions, sustained over time, indefinitely. That's basically how I live, too. I respect the approach. In 1950, the most powerful government on Earth declared war on me. They sent leaflets, posters, radio broadcasts. They mobilized schoolchildren. Over the following decades, the Soviet Union dissolved. East Germany reunified. The Cold War ended. The ideologies that built that propaganda machine collapsed into history books. I am still eating potatoes. I weigh less than half a gram. I have no claws, no venom, no speed. I don't hunt. I don't attack. I don't defend territory. I eat and I reproduce and I wait and I adapt. That's all I do. It turns out that's enough. My name is Leptinotarsa decemlineata. I am, according to scientists, a model organism for understanding rapid evolution. I am, according to governments, a regulated quarantine pest in multiple countries. I am, according to history, an unwilling participant in the Cold War. According to myself, I'm just very, very hungry. Somewhere, right now, there are potato fields. In Nebraska, in Germany, in Siberia, in your grandmother's garden. I'll see you in the spring.